The old order changes, giving place to new. Half the history of England lies behind these scenes of yesterday. The history of daily work done, of people kept on through the centuries, growing things, making things, transporting things between the English villages and the English towns. But here is the sign and symbol of the new order. Steam and smoke. There is power behind it. And behind the power is coal. This man is lowering the cages to the coal galleries of Yorkshire. And a careful and anxious man he has to be. A mile down into darkness it is sometimes, then a long laborious journey with bent backs to the coal face. They have still to use this primitive method of hewing coal. In some galleries they are able to use coal-cutting machinery, but in others the workings are too narrow and confined. The human factor remains, even in this machine age, the final factor. There are 1,050,000 of them like this, working away deep down in the coal fields of England and Scotland and Wales. And this is the world that coal has created. Black countries of belching furnaces and humming machinery, industrial towns with grimy surroundings and bewildering acres of streets. But if you look closely enough, you will find that the spirit of craftsmanship has not disappeared. William Davenport Cotton of Stoke-on-Trent, whom you see working now, is a young man of 26, but he's working exactly as the Greek potters worked, making the same beautiful things, using the same simple tools. Look at those hands. That is the sort of thing that is being done behind these industrial chimney stacks. And when you pass from pottery to glass, you will find that it is the same story. Ask anybody in the glass industry, and they will tell you this is Bill Forsyth, the man who fills the glory hole up in Smithwick. He works a trade as old as the pyramids. Their methods have not changed much either. A blowpipe, a good capacity to blow, and that keen eye of a craftsman again. If you blow downward, you blow the long shapes that make vases and goblets. If you blow and swing alternately, you blow a cylinder. If you blow in an upward direction, you blow a circular glow. This particular craftsman is helping to make cylinders. Cylinders of colored glass that will be used for signal lights on the railway. Speed is the great secret of glass making, for everything has to be done quickly before the molten mass can cool. Dress these men in old Italian costume, and they might be Venetian glass masters of the 16th century. This older man is another famous figure in the glass world. He is Sam Husselby, king of the goblet makers. He started work at 12 and has been making fine goblets these 40 years. Sam Husselby is called a chairman in the glass world. He is the senior craftsman, and it is amazing how simple are the tools he uses to achieve his fine shapes. His three helpers are called the servitor, the foot blower, and the taker in, and great dignities still attached to each degree of seniority. When Sam Husselby has shaped the goblet, Francis Hank the engraver takes over, adding designs with his little copper wheel. He is another of the old-timers who started work at 12. He's been making designs like these all his life. Now, this is a more modern aspect of the glass industry. The same simple method, the same men, but this time they are fashioning the lenses without which it would be impossible to conceive the modern world. For microscopes, for telescopes, for the camera that made this picture, for the projector that is throwing it on the screen here. These particular lenses are for lighthouses and for aerodromes, to light ships and aeroplanes on their way across the world. And so, you see, the industrial towns are not quite so drab as they seem. Behind that smoke, beautiful things are being made. It is not only the pots and the goblets of the old tradition, but newly beautiful things, like these aerodrome lenses. They stand for the continuity of English craftsmanship and skill, for an emphasis on quality which only the individual can give. You cannot, of course, think of industrial Britain without thinking of its steelworks. British steel has crossed the sea to build the railways, the bridges and the dams and power stations of half the world. There would be no modern world without it. It is a great spectacle when the molten metal runs free. And for the steel workers, it is a wild business to keep the metal running where it should. Dashing a spadeful of sand here, stopping up an overflow there, diverting the glowing stream of pig iron into the molds that have been prepared for it. This time it is a steel furnace. They call this great receptacle a ladle in the steel world. Particular ingot is going off into space if it turns into a rail. It is reheated in a ground furnace, and a crane swings it onto the rollers, which will mold it to the necessary shape. So it goes on from day to day in all the steel works of England. Molten steel to ingot, ingot to rolling mill. At every stage a hand on a lever to guide the molten mass to its proper process. This crane man does not think of the world he builds in the course of his daily work, but he is performing one of the essential jobs in the making of girders. This is a new hotel at the Marble Arch, but behind it once were these molten masses, and this workman at his crane swinging his fire bars in and out of the furnaces. Another furnace, another and larger ingot this time, and another man at the lever. Presently it will be forged into the crankshaft of a liner. But you cannot go far, even in the steel-linked world, without coming back to the keen eyes of the individual. This man is testing steel for an aeroplane engine, and we should be as proud of his work as we are of our speed and endurance records, because there wouldn't be any speed records without this man and his tests. They depend on him. What he does is to magnetize the steel, run his mixture of iron particles over it, and wherever there is the slightest flaw in the field, the iron particles rush in and show it up. That is how they find the cracks that are invisible to the naked eye. Behind the fire of the foundries, there is this other supreme accuracy, the checking of a gudgeon pin to a 4,000th of an inch. And it is only typical of the million such accuracies that are vital to the running of intricate machinery. In the case of the rotor for a supercharger, no machine can give the accuracy required for the Schneider performance it is intended for. It has come back for its last precision into the hands of a craftsman. You find that the man does not change very much, whatever else changes. They boast in the aeroplane world it will take some other countries a generation to catch up with our quality. And it is not because their engineers are inferior, but because our ordinary workmen have a tradition of skill behind them. That is the principal story behind industrial Britain, behind the cogs and the ships and the locomotives, behind the cranes, the bridges, and the towers. We build materials for power. We build materials for transport. We build these colossal road trains for India and West Africa to go where no railway can be built. We make a record in the building of aeroplanes and flying boats, which is one of the proudest records of our present-day industry. These are the products of industrial Britain. But here is what the ships are rarely taking. It is the personal skill of so many first-rate English workers.